But first, there are a lot of people who would love to work in the movie business. Louise Rosen actually does.
She lives and works in Brunswick, a long way from Hollywood. She started out selling and distributing movies, often documentaries, then started doing some producing. Louise Rosen's latest film is a documentary called Killing for Love, about a man who may have been wrongfully convicted.
Her big professional break came years ago when she was working in radio advertising sales, and a former boss asked her if instead she'd like to sell movies.
And I thought, wow, yeah. And 3 weeks later, I was in Monte Carlo at a sales conference selling public television programs.
Selling and distributing films is something that most people, I think, never even think about. We just sort of assume that the films are made and then they come to us. And it doesn't happen like that. It's not magic. Someone has to sell and distribute them. So what do you do in selling and distributing movies? Children's
programming, fiction features, music, documentaries, of course a lot of documentaries, but at that time I was purely distributing, importing and exporting, I guess you could say. And what it meant was going to conferences and sales conventions, setting up a booth, handing out literature, talking to people who buy them for the television networks around the world, and encouraging them to consider yours on the merits of the quality of the work and the reviews and the ratings and things like that.
In time, she decided she wanted to have more influence in financing and making movies. In short, she started getting into producing.
And found it way more satisfying than simply going out and selling.
You've worn a variety of different hats in the film business. How many films have you actually had a reasonably hands-on role in?
Easily more than a dozen at this point. And my involvement has ranged greatly from playing a role in the development of the project to coming in later on and really being involved in the editing and the finishing process.
Louise Rosen's latest movie, which she produced, is called Killing for Love.
Promise me, Jens, whatever it takes now. Promise me you will not let me ruin your life.
The story goes back to 1985 and the brutal murder of a well-to-do couple in Virginia. Ultimately, the couple's daughter admitted to being an accessory to the killings and was given a long prison sentence. Her boyfriend, a German national, was convicted and has been in prison for 32 years. What gives this film a lot of its dramatic power and tension is that the young man who was convicted, as time goes by and new evidence comes in, it now appears that he was wrongly convicted. And the story continues to go on. Is it a little frustrating for you that at some point you have to finish a movie, and so the movie is over and you've told your story, and yet more evidence has come out since then that takes the story in a new direction?
People always say after they've seen the film, there's more than reasonable doubt here that he did it, and many people say that they are persuaded that he was not guilty. The work that has happened since the film was finished only serves to reinforce that, and what's gratifying is this gives us a way to tell the story, and then the research that comes after and the information that comes after always makes for an excellent post-film screening discussion.
Among the people who attended a recent screening of Killing for Love in Brunswick was Anthony Sanborn. Sanborn was convicted of murdering a girl in Portland in 1989. Last year, after serving nearly 30 years in prison for a crime he said he did not commit, he was freed after a key witness recanted her testimony and grave questions were raised about whether Sanborn had been wrongfully convicted.
I can hardly imagine what it would take for someone who's had his experience to come and see a film that in many ways is similar to what his experiences had been.
Did you get a chance to talk to him?
I did, and he was very emotional. I reached out to shake his hand, and instead of taking my hand, he embraced me and thanked me for, he said, it's so important that films like this are made.
The movie business is changing. It's unclear just what the future is of seeing movies in a theater. Right now, home streaming is huge. Netflix and so forth appear to be the wave of the future. Where do you think the movie business is headed?
Where do I think the movie business is headed?
In 30 seconds or less.
Okay. I still think that people look for and want a shared experience. And that, I don't think that's going to change. In fact, in many ways, I feel that people increasingly want to have a contrast to that at-home digital experience, and they want to go out and be with other people and share that. So the types of venues that will show films will probably become more in the vein of, say, a place like Frontier here in Brunswick, or the Space Gallery down in Portland, who can offer those multi-level cultural experiences.
Killing for Love, the documentary Louise Rosen produced, will be shown tomorrow and Sunday at 2 o'clock at the Portland Museum of Art.
On Sunday, Anthony Sanborn, the Mainer who was recently released from prison after doubts were raised about his murder conviction, will join in the discussion that will take place after the screening. On Saturday, Louise Rosen will take questions from the audience.
Again, the film will be shown at 2 o'clock tomorrow and Sunday at the Portland Museum of Art.